Welcome back to Dadvertising.
Hello again, Alan.
Hello, Alex. How are you today?
I'm all right.
That's
I'm all
all
right. I think I'm slightly under the weather, but I'm not sure.
I like your hat,
Thank you.
Bud Light.
Bud Light.
How long have you owned that one for?
I bought this hat during the midst of the Bud Light controversy.
Oh, really?
Yeah, because it was literally, I thought it would be funny, and it was at the shops, and it was literally half price.
There you go.
Yeah, so I thought it would be a funny hat to wear. So,
There you go. Did you get the reaction that you wanted?
I went to a party that day, a 1-year-old's birthday party, and
I was rocking.
Yeah, and my friends who are, we listen to similar, podcasts and stuff like that. They were like, funny hat. I got a nod. People recognized it was a funny hat. It was more a joke for me though, and here we are. Thanks for the compliment.
You're welcome.
Cheers,
You're welcome.
man.
All right, so today we are talking about nice segue into hiring.
Yeah.
Got nothing to do with it. That's okay. So today we're talking about hiring, and more specifically, I think for you and I think we've both probably got a lot more experience hiring in the Philippines than we do hiring here in Australia.
For this business, yeah. I have hired people in Australia before, back in hospitality.
Oh, yes. Correct. Yep.
But yeah, for what we're speaking about today.
Yeah. Okay. So the reason we're talking about this topic is we have one of our listeners. So shout out to Brendan.
Yep.
Who mutual friend of ours.
Don't assume that he's my friend.
Hear that, Brendan?
Brandon.
Hear what he's saying about you, Brendan?
Brendan T. No, I love Brendan. Brendan's mad.
No, he's a legend.
Brendan and his wife are really, really cool business, cool couple.
Yeah. So he was listening in on one of the episodes that I was talking about hiring and reached out to me after and asked me a couple of questions about my process and hiring on LinkedIn and whatnot. And I realized after I went through a few things, there's a lot more detail that I can definitely add to this because I think there's a lot of people who hire through agencies, and not to take away from hiring through agencies and other things. I haven't had a great experience hiring through agencies.
Great.
My only I think there are some great agencies, and if there's a very, very for example, I know of a business who hires out VAs specifically for real estate agents. So they basically train them and come prepared for things that agents need before and they know what that role looks like and what that role entails and how to hire for it before an agent actually knows what to hire for. So I think there are some really good situations and circumstances in which you can hire some really effective VAs. But I'm going to sort of talk about my own experience when there was once upon a time where I did have a really cool VA. There was a little bit of an issue where I sort of take...
Filipino VA?
Yes, in the Philippines. And I sort of I wanted to, we got to a point where the business was doing really well, started making some money, and the person who was part of our team, I noticed that they needed some help with upgrading their equipment, their laptop, more specifically. And it was a bit of a shit show trying to help them. I couldn't just, in the past, I have offered to sort of go halves with some of my staff members, whether if they want to buy, whether it's a laptop or something, just depending on the situation and the circumstances and things like that, I will sometimes go halves or I will work something out. There are subscriptions and other things that we pay for that helps them do their jobs better. They could probably do it, but I know it's going to obviously increase their productivity and all those other things. But this specifically, even bonuses or, around Christmas time and different things, it is really hard because there's a whole nother conversation that you need to have whenever you're involving money or forms of payment. And it's just not clear cut. You have to go through that agency based on their rules, their agreements, and all those other things. I didn't have a great experience around it. And also, I don't think, like, once you really get in tune with it, exactly what it is that you want and need, I don't think anyone else can hire for that. For me specifically, until I find an alternative solution, right now, I really enjoy finding the right people.
Yeah.
It is a process that I enjoy. And I've hired some duds, but I've also hired some absolute gems in our business and whatnot. What's been your experience?
Interestingly, you brought up agencies because I've not enjoyed working with agencies because the promise is going in, we're going to source and train a staff member that's perfect for you. And the margin on top is, why you pay us. You pay the agency $1,000 for them to then pay a staff member $700, for example, and that $300 margin is for training, sourcing, that sort of thing. But I don't think it's always been that way. I think I've hired from agencies twice, and I'm always just like, what am I paying this agency for? This person, I'm still training them. I'm still doing a lot of stuff. They weren't as experienced as I was promised. Plus, I have to have this person full-time hours, usually, which is rough, which you don't always need. And so, firstly, I'll put it this way. I have hired within Australia for hospitality, and I've hired in the Philippines and locally, but in the Philippines mostly for digital work. And just the work ethic and loyalty and sort of care taken by people from the Philippines is just mind-blowing.
Yeah.
They're just, I don't know if it's the culture they're raised in or whatever it is, but I know there's a lot of people over there who are, have a lot of faith. There's quite a religious country. Generally, they're nicer people. I think a lot of religious people are really nice. At least all my sister's Christian mates are. And, man, they just work so hard. You say, can you start at this time tomorrow a bit earlier? Yes. Or they'll have a finishing time and you'll notice that they're sending you stuff at midnight and they're still working. And the answer is always like, yes, I'll get that done. But with Australian people in cafes and stuff, it was always like, oh, it's not my job. Or like, I'm calling in sick because I went out last night.
Yep.
And far out, like, it's the kind of probably a blanket statement, but as business owners, we probably have a decent work ethic. Otherwise, we'd never get a business off the ground. And you've got to realize that you're going to be working harder and caring more than your staff.
Yep.
But every member of staff on my team who's from the Philippines, they're just guns. And not necessarily skill and talent-wise when I bring them on, but just commitment-wise.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. Like, that's definitely been my experience, is the level of commitment, the level of loyalty, the level of care. And I think that is a cultural thing. I also think, I was actually having a conversation with one of my team members this week, and she told me about the advantages of Filipinos working with Australians instead of Americans, purely based on the time zones. So
2 hours.
It's 2 hours behind. It's 3 hours when we're in daylight savings, whereas the US, they've got to work through the night.
Yeah.
And it is a common thing, especially if you're working in a call center or whatever the case is, that they will typically just obviously work through the night and just. To be able to have a for those people to have a family and a normal life where they either take their kids to school or whatever the case is, it's so difficult. And so that plays a huge part. And I just, like you sort of said, it is extremely hard to find someone who's so hard working and so diligent with their work here in Australia, which you'd have to probably, if I could not run my business the way that I do unless I charged 3 to 4 times more than I do.
Totally.
And it's just to cover wages and what's required, in and amongst, tax, salaries, super, and all of the other things in between. I think there's a huge opportunity, especially when you run an online business, to be able to obviously hire in the Philippines. I think there's obviously still some roles that are really important here in Australia that I will probably hire for in the future. I work with different contract videographers and have had a really, really good experience with those, but not someone who I've put on a salary per se.
Yeah, I've always had a Australian sales team.
Yep.
And this is completely like an unfortunate truth. If we in Australia pick up the phone to an Asian accent that sounds like they're in a call center, we're most likely not going to take that call very seriously.
Yeah.
So it could be Christian from my team in the Philippines, who's an awesome dude, who's calling about tech support or whatever. But it also could be some guy trying to sell some fake government solar rebate, that sort of thing.
Exactly.
And unfortunately, that's a job that you can't really. I've never had a good experience with remote appointment setters calling people, because that's just the Australian mindset. We lock up when we hear what we assume to be a telemarketer.
Yeah, absolutely.
So, yeah, man. But I mean, my team does. Once my clients are on board, my team's talking to them all the time.
Yeah.
We'll hop on a Zoom, we'll do that sort of thing. And they're amazing. They were a bit shy with that at first. But now they've been with me for a couple of years. They're doing Zoom calls. They're taking them by themselves when I was on holiday.
Yeah.
They were running meetings. Amazing.
My team, I've exact same experience. My team were running specifically for one client who really we're in the middle of a project while we were in the US, and one of my team members stepped up from the Philippines, was doing all the interaction, feeding it back to the rest of our team. It was great. So,
Mad.
Yeah. So I want to go through some of the do's and don'ts and some of the things that I recommend of my personal experience, and I'd love to obviously hear your experience. How many team members do you have in the Philippines?
I've got 4 in one business right now.
Yeah.
That I've personally hired. I've hired a lot more than that. I've had bigger teams than that in the past, and then realized I didn't. I hate having someone who's not got a full day. That really stresses me out when I'm paying someone. Paying someone you don't need there is obviously a bad business decision, but from a personal level, I really dislike the idea of someone feeling like their job doesn't matter, or they're not busy. So I scaled it back at the end of last year. I had 7 Filipino staff. Now I've got 4. And then in my other business, there's about another 4 who I work with closely as well.
Yep. So I've got 6. I'm probably going to make it 7 in the next month or 2. But yeah, I've got 6 at this very moment. And I think I've had up to 8 at one stage as well. So some of the things that I've personally found with hiring, the first one is that I use LinkedIn to hire. I've tried onlinejobs.ph. I've even tried hiring someone through freelance. Is it Freelancer? There's it's not Fiverr.
Upwork?
Upwork.
Yeah.
I've tried to give someone a project and then offer them a full-time job after. Yep. Didn't really work very well. I find that LinkedIn is a great place. The things that I like about LinkedIn is you do need to pay, if you want to get the best results, I think you need to pay for it. And it's only by the time I have typically spent $10 to $20 per job.
Oh, it's nothing.
Yeah. So per ad. So it is really nothing.
Yeah.
Yeah. So my process is I will go to LinkedIn. I'll write out a job ad. Part of the process, especially when I'm hiring for say a video editor or someone like that, is I will typically put out a few different questions to filter through. So there's qualifying questions, and some of those will be so the first thing I put at the bottom of the ad is that if you apply for this role, I will be in touch within the next 24 hours, because I've had experiences where I'll reach out to people and they just don't get back to you.
Yeah.
So I will be in touch within the next 24 hours, right? So please be active. I will give you a task to complete, like a simple task, but there will be a task to complete if you complete this, if you apply for this role.
Okay.
So one of the questions is in the qualifying thing, are you prepared to do the task? Yes or no? And if they say no, immediately out.
Yep.
Great. Second one will be like a little bit about their experience. Like it's more about their experience and just asking and just qualifying, like, and maybe a little bit about their English as well.
Can I just quickly hop in? So you're writing a job ad, because I've never done this on
Yeah,
LinkedIn, because obviously it is hell on earth, the
Yeah,
worst platform of all time. Only a psychopath would enjoy logging into LinkedIn on a daily basis. So you're writing a job ad, and then what are you like physically doing with it? Do you post it like to
good question.
running an ad with an audience?
With LinkedIn, there is a section where you can actually post jobs.
Okay.
So it's sort of like its own dedicated section. You don't need to be a LinkedIn, like the LinkedIn tried to make it out like you need to have the LinkedIn recruiter and all. You don't need any of that bullshit.
Right.
You can just be using LinkedIn for free, go into job posts and write up a job ad. And you can do it all for free as well. But it is worth paying. There's a couple of tricks that I'll talk about here. The first one is, writing out your job ad. And then you can select the Philippines, or you can select Australia. You can select online, full-time, whatever the case is. But obviously, when you're writing a job ad, just be extremely clear with what you're doing and talking about. That's quite obvious. But I like to give a task in the process. The task is, all right, and I'm going to use a video editor because it's the biggest position that I've hired for, or the most consistent position I've hired for. I will always have a piece of raw footage and I will give them some instructions what to do with the raw footage. But I'll give them some framework, but I want to see their creativity. Like, it is really, really important, because here's the thing, especially if you're hiring for a creative position, there is an abundance of templates everywhere on the internet, in Canva, everywhere.
Right.
And so what you will notice is there are some really clever people who have created an entire portfolio based on templates. So it makes it look like they've done this amazing work, but you should, like, especially if you understand templates and where they've gotten them from, you'll understand who's a real client, because there should be some, like, you should be able to see some sort of reality or some sort of real business in their portfolio. Or, like, and this is the other reason why I have a test, is because a lot of the people who do these tests won't even submit anything because they know, fuck, this guy's found me out. And they just eliminate themselves.
Interesting.
Yeah. So typically I'll give it 24 to 48 hours and I'll have more than enough applicants. Over that course of a period of time, even after they've all filtered out, I'll have anywhere from 20 to 30 people who have applied for this single role.
Wow.
Yeah, for especially a video editor role. Obviously depends on the role that you're hiring for, but I like to be really specific. So so you've got your qualifying questions, you've got your tasks, so you then can start an immediate conversation with them into LinkedIn, and that's where you in the messenger of LinkedIn, you're giving them the task. Yeah. What I'm looking for from that point on is obviously what they give me back, but what I'm looking for is how complicated do they make it? Do they come back and ask, okay, like I'm quite clear with my instructions, but what I'm looking for is someone who would just go out and do it and give it a crack. I like more that someone's, even if they're not entirely sure, even though there's probably some more clarifying questions that they can potentially ask, that they go out and do it and give me something back, and they're open to feedback. Because there are some people who will just ask questions like, so how do I do this, or how do I do that, or what are you looking for here and what are you looking for there? Like, if I said to you, Alex, I'm looking, like, I don't have a lot of time, but I just want you to put together like a Facebook ad for me. This is my business and I'm open to seeing what you sort of put together. You already have some ideas of what you'd sort of put together, right? You may want to know, do you want people to book in a call? Yes.
Yeah.
Great. But like you'll now go, okay, say no more. I'll put something together. And there may be some things that you ideally need to make it amazing, but you already have a fundamental idea because you've got the experience to know what you're doing and you've done it a million times. And so a video editor who knows what they're doing will just go and execute something, and maybe they haven't executed it right or whatever the case is. Maybe some of the instructions could be better. But for the most part, what I've found is that if you give them a task to do what it is that they're going to be predominantly doing on a consistent basis, how they execute that task is exactly how they'll execute the role once they're in the role.
Yeah, so you're looking for quality of the task a little bit.
Yep.
But mostly how they go about doing it.
Exactly.
Because skills can be taught and
portfolios lie.
Portfolios lie, but someone's vibe and their way of just dealing with work that's given to them. Yeah, 100%. That's very, very good idea. And how many people,
usually how many people come back to me and I tell them I'm going to be making a call within the next 2 days, or pardon me, we will begin the next phase in the next 2 days. So I give them a clear, we need this back in 24 hours.
Wow.
I want to give them 24 hours and I will time it. Like I will see when I gave it to them and I will make sure. Yeah. I'm really strict. I'm really I want to see them. I want to put a little bit of heat on them immediately to see how they respond under pressure.
Business idea for you. You could just do this whole thing, just pretend you're hiring every day and just get people to make all your videos for free.
No.
Never hire anyone.
No, that would be wrong. I'll get a really bad reputation.
No,
anyway.
That's awesome. And so once you've got, say, 10 decent videos come back,
I'll usually have 2 to 3.
Okay, so you got
maybe
2 or 3.
4 or 5 if I'm really lucky. Right. But there will be two standouts.
And then you select them, and then what do you do?
All right. So what I do from that point is I will then book an interview. Now, if they meet the quality, I want to know about them. And so at this point, I still haven't looked at their resume. I might have looked at their portfolio and gotten a little bit of a picture as to what is actually real or what's not or whatever the case is. But by this point, after seeing their work and even how they interact, here you go, sir, or whatever, how they interact with you in that moment is a huge reflection of how they will interact with you and your team. It is exactly the same. Like there are so many, the smallest things in that interaction matter.
Yeah.
Everything. And so how they interact with you there and then is just a mirror reflection of how they will work and perform when they're in your business. Do they ask a lot of questions? I'm not opposed to being asked questions, but I'm opposed to waiting for a question to be answered or waiting for something that might not necessarily matter the exact outcome to dictate and decide how something's done. And you've got to also understand and appreciate that the piece of work that they're going to give you might need some work and might need some feedback, but for the most part, that's fine. So then I will then book an interview with the 2 or 3 people. The first thing I'm looking for, or one of the most important questions that I look for, is I'm looking to understand what process did they go through. Tell me about your process that you went through to create it.
Oh, yeah.
And some people really simplify it. Some people sort of talk about what they do. But sometimes I learn things during that process as well. Well, I will see that they've gone and, for example, you can tell when someone's taken the time to, find and add elements that they had to search on Google or search on a library, add it in, cut it up, whatever the case is. People will sometimes add those elements and things like that. So I like to know about that. I have a couple of other interview questions. I then typically want to understand more about who they are and what they want and their situation, their circumstance. I like to also know about them as well. For me, it's really important that above and beyond the work, that people feel like they can live their life. So I do. One of the appealing things about working with us is, we have a huge focus on delivery, and there's 3 main. These are the 3 main things that I'm looking for: delivery, communication, creative interpretation. And I actually say that in my message. In my communication, like I tell them the three most important things. The creative interpretation part is how do they interpret what they're looking at and turn it into a story that for a viewer. That is the critical part because that's what I get paid for.
Yeah.
Like I am sitting with a client creatively interpreting what they're trying to say, even though they may not be clear. I'm sitting there giving them feedback and it's like, you could say it this way or you could do it this way. Can you do it this way?
Yeah.
So that because I creatively already know where I want to take it and where I want my team to take it, but I need to be on the front foot and really be listening, really be interpreting what they're saying for their audience, for what they want to do and all the other things as well. So then I'll look to then obviously bring them in. I will, interview them. And then that's when, we go through some detail around how we work, how we operate, obviously ask some questions. I like to know if they want to ask questions and things like that as well. But
do you give them the salary that you're going to pay or do you ask them what they are expecting?
I like to ask what they're expecting. That doesn't necessarily change what I'm going to give them. I already have a figure in mind, but I'd like to ask what they want.
Yeah.
Because the other thing that you need to keep in mind is that, like, depending on the situation, the circumstances, some of the people that I've hired or some of the people that we've worked with, they're currently in a job where they have to travel an hour or 2 hours every day one way. It's a 4-hour round trip.
Yeah.
Plus, they work in an office. Their time is micromanaged and everything else. I'm not a micromanager. We are very flexible on times.
Yeah.
The delivery is a key part, like our projects and things like when we give a time commitment, we take it very seriously. We allow a lot of time and a lot of freedom around getting work executed. Like one of our team members started in the Philippines. He's now living in Japan.
Oh.
We also had another team member who was living in the Philippines, was living in London. We're very flexible with the balance of working in and around your life but the delivery, the communication, and the creative interpretation needs to consistently evolve over a course of a period of time. And as long as we're seeing that, happy days. And so that's...
you don't want to be a year in still telling people the same things. Like, you want them to take the reins a lot more.
Yeah.
And not necessarily on, managing projects, but just being able to say, get this done without a million questions. Because generally, your process for clients, mine for clients, while every client's different, it's usually the same thing you're doing over and over again.
Yeah.
That's cool. That's cool. And then just finally, do you give people like a trial or anything? How does that work?
Oh, yes. Good question. So we do a 2-week trial. It's a paid trial.
Yeah.
So it's 2 weeks where basically I have permission to let them go on the first day or in the first hour.
Yeah.
Which I have actually done if I need to. But it's a 2-week trial where I just want to see what they're capable of and what they're up to. It's a 2-week trial just to let them know that, like, you're on notice. Like, I want to really see what you're capable of. But this is an opportunity. And I would like to think that we have I've been told, like, I can only go based on the feedback, but I believe our team members really love our environment.
Yeah.
Like, we've got a really solid culture, and there's part of me that's like, I don't know that I've actually designed it that way. Like, I am extremely intentional now with what I do, but it's really funny how it's evolved. Like, if I had to start again, I think I'd know what to do, but it's really interesting. Like, there have been 1 or 2 team members who have had to let go. One specifically for culture, a couple of others just due to, like, lying or not delivering things and just making excuses and things like that. But for the most part, I have an incredible team. They do incredible work. And I'm so excited. Like, it is so cool to hear their stories about how they, like, you forget, like, you're here in Australia living your life. I've obviously never met them, my team members, before. And that is something that I plan on changing hopefully in the next 12 months.
Yep.
I'd love to go to the Philippines and meet them
Yeah, me too.
and whatnot. But I I've just, like, I have an incredible team and they're so good. Like, they, like, not only the quality of the work, and, you know, and whatnot, like, but just they are now evolving with each other.
Yeah.
And I think it's a little bit of evolution of learning how to give them the tools that they need to make their own decisions. But when you give them room, there is so much that they want to bring to the table. The right people, obviously. Not everyone wants to, but, like, they want to show you what they're capable of, and they want to bring real value. And sometimes you just got to hop out of the way and let them. And yeah, again, every single one, like, for those who are watching, I've got a grin from ear to ear. I am so happy with our team. Every single one of them is incredible. And I would obviously not have the business that I do today without the diligence, the hard work, and everything else that team put together. And yeah, I'm so grateful.
Man, that's good, man. Well, you got a very big hiring process.
Yeah.
You know, it's not a fast and loose, hope for the best sort of thing, bring them in. You're really putting the barriers up to who comes in.
Yeah.
And a lot of it was cultural.
Yeah.
So that's cool. So right people will filter through the other side, I guess.
Absolutely.
And those 2-week trials as well, because we do that as well, you sometimes figure out that it's not for them.
Yeah.
It's not for you.
Yeah.
You know, but sometimes they're like, yeah, not for me as well.
Yeah.
And that's good too, because you don't want someone holding on just because it's a job.
Yeah, 100%. Like, even, you know, you talk about the 2-week trials and everything that I just mentioned in my process about the task and all the other things, like the whole portfolio thing. I've hired someone who had a glamorous portfolio, started day one and took 3 days to deliver a single video. And I was just like, why did it take so long?
Yeah.
And I realized she didn't put her portfolio together. Like, I was like, okay, see you later.
Wow.
Yeah.
So
just like, yeah.
Fake.
Yeah. And then, I've had other examples where, you know, like, even I was almost about to hire someone, and then I was just like, you know, I hadn't told them, but in my mind I was like, yeah, I'm going to give this person a trial. And then I started asking about their life, and they just started complaining about complaining about this and complaining about that. And I'm glad, and I was just listening. I was like, nah. Yeah, I'm glad, like, just waited that extra, like, you know, there is so much that you can tell by your interactions with someone, just the subtle differences. And actually, I was listening to another I don't know whose podcast or whatever it was, but I heard a story about Craig Bellamy, the Melbourne coach, right?
Yeah.
His system for who he brings into the side, right? So I'm going to repeat what I heard, which is when they're looking at a player who's interested in coming down to Melbourne, there's basically a couple of key things that Craig is looking for, but there are some really, the way that he filters people out is he'll organise to catch up, like get them to fly down to Melbourne, catch up for coffee. And the first thing he's looking for is when he orders, like he'll go, what do you want? If they say the word please in the process of can I have an ice long black please, that's strike one. If they don't, and then strike two is when they put the coffee in front of them, do they say thank you?
Yeah.
Like, and the whole purpose, the whole preface, if they don't say please and thank you, immediately no. And the whole preface of that was that he was saying how, like, decent coaches can get a team to the top 8. Even better ones, ones who have a good culture can get them to the top 4.
Yeah.
But the ones who win premierships, and I don't know if this is by statistics or whatever, are the ones with the least off-field
drama. Yeah. Oh, of course.
You think you think about the Panthers. Like, I know that Taylor May's been in the headlines recently, but the Panthers have such a good culture in and among. And I would be fascinated to understand the statistics around it, because there's some random people going around with random statistics, and I've heard a couple of things about the Raiders and some of the things that they were doing and how it had played an effect. But it was just really interesting, to hear like how important culture is. And you think about the system that the Melbourne Storm have and the success that they've had over the last 20 years. It doesn't surprise me that they've got that system and they've had the success that they've had because of it.
There you go. Whenever, it just comes manners. That's one of the hard lines that we said with our with our families, right?
Don't be rude.
Just before. Yeah, I mean, you do get that in physical workplaces.
Yeah.
When you do have a complainer and they can bring the whole vibe down.
Yeah.
You know, there was a chef I used to work with and he was so like up and down. And when he's in a good mood, place is rocking. When he's in a bad mood, the whole place sucks to be there for that whole day. And people will be like, I'm not working with this guy. You know, so yeah, I think that's super duper interesting, man. I think culture, I think a lot of us hire on skill and tangibles. Culture and vibe is really, really top of the ladder for me to a point.
Yeah.
You know, and often you'll find that it's the people who are more polite, the people who are more, you know, enthusiastic, they will progress faster as well in terms of skill.
100%.
Because they'll just have a go. It won't be, you know, I can't do that, or that's not really my job. It's, I'll figure it out.
Yeah.
And then they'll send you a Loom video. Hey, man, here's some stuff I figured out.
That absolutely.
Love that.
Like that curiosity.
Yeah.
To just go out and try, even though, and they're not prepared to, like, and this is a universal thing. It's not just in it's like you've got to be curious to know more. That curiosity will not only, I believe the curiosity that I have is what has elevated me in the position. I don't know where I sort of sit in the video marketing market, but I would like to think that wherever I sit, it's quite high, and it's because of my curiosity into people and how they work and operate, and then an effective system to follow.
Yeah. You're a very curious kitten. You are consistently asking questions like that no one ever asked me. We'll be in the car and you'll ask me some deep question.
Can you give me one that...
Not really.
Okay. You can't remember.
No, but I'm often just taken aback. Like, I think that questions I would ask you on a podcast, for example, I wouldn't ask in real life.
Yeah.
I'd be like, it's not something I'd ask in the car. Like, what are your hard lines on parenting,
correct,
negotiations? Yeah. You'll just say them in real life. You'll just say them, like, on the phone. You'll read me, and you'll be like, you know, like, can I ask you honestly, like, what you really feel about this one topic? And I never talk like that. And it's really nice to be asked those questions. Yeah. And so you're a very curious dude. And there you go. And so you will attract staff the same for the most part. 100%. And they're the ones who will stay. Yeah. So you've nailed it, man. Really good tangible advice there. Hiring on LinkedIn, the task idea is really good. The process, the trial, the vibe, the culture. Yeah, I love it, man. I think I've got nothing to add to that. My hiring process is way worse than yours. So
there we go. Learn something new every day.
Nailed it, man. 100% nailed it. Proud of you, Alan. Proud of you guys for listening.
I love you, my team.
Yeah, much love. Have a good day. Peace.